All right, hello again. This week I want to read a few scriptures and then we'll be hopefully doing something out in the sand. So we'll get to that in a minute. So this week there's a scripture in Helaman chapter 5, verse 12, and it says, "And now, my sons," this is Helaman and he's talking to his sons, remember that it is upon the rock of our Redeemer, who is Christ, the Son of God, that ye must build your foundation, that when the devil shall send forth his mighty winds, yea, his shafts in the whirlwind, yea, when all his hail and his mighty storm shall beat upon you, it shall have no power over you to drag you down to the gulf of misery and endless woe, because of the rock upon which ye are built, which is a sure foundation, a foundation whereon if men build, they cannot fall." So that talks about how Jesus Christ is our rock, and we're going to go outside and see if we can make something work. All right, so first we are going to build on here, which is going to represent our rock. This is going along with a song that says, "The wise man built his house upon a rock." So
I wrote that song.
you wrote it. The wise man built his house upon the rock. The wise man built his house upon the rock. The wise man built his house upon the rock, and the rains came a-tumbling down. So, he built his house upon the rock. We sing that 3 times. He is going to be on the ground, and then the rains are going to come down. The rains came down, and the floods came up. The rains came down, and the floods came up. The rains came down, and the floods came up, and the house on the rock stood still. So, in a second, we're going to have the rains actually come down on this house, and we're going to see if it stays still. So, now, the foolish man, he built his house upon the sand. So we're going to build a foundation of sand. Ready? Here's our sand.
Here's my house.
Is that where you're going to do yours? And it goes, "The foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand, and the rains came a-tumbling down." So, and then the rains came down again. So we're going to have the rains come down, and we're going to watch our house on the rock and on the sand. So, here we go. The wise man built his house upon the rock. The wise man built his house upon the rock. The wise man built his house upon the rock, and the rains came a-tumbling down. Oh, the rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up, and the house on the rock stood still. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand, and the rains came a-tumbling down. Oh, the rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up, and the house on the sand washed away. All right, so last week there was a story about the stripling warriors. There was 2,000 young men. They were all pretty young. They were inexperienced with war, but they decided they wanted to help fight for their families, for their freedom, for their homes. And they ended up going into battle. And at the end of the battle, Helaman was their leader, and he was worried that there would be a lot of them who had died because, like I said, they were not experienced. They had no idea what they were doing. But it said that the Lord had supported them, yea, and kept them from falling by the sword, insomuch that not one soul had been slain. So the Lord protected all of them, that none of them were dead. But the next verse says, behold, they have received many wounds. So this kind of tells us that our foundation, when we went over the rock and the sand, that helps support us, and it'll make sure that we don't perish. But it doesn't stop the rains from coming and the winds from coming and maybe giving our house a hard time, but it will make sure that our house won't move from where we plant ourselves. So Jesus Christ is our rock.